Hello, everybody. Good evening. I hope we all had a lovely day yesterday, and we are here again with the same spirit. Yay! As you can see, we rep Django Girls Abuja. So I would like to say, on behalf of the whole organizing team, thank you. Thank you for attending yesterday, and you are welcome today also. I'm sure yesterday was fun and exciting, and today promises to even be more better. I would like to, like, if you are here and you're feeling it, just send something, send a message on the chat, or just say something. Let's know you are here. Let's feel your presence. Okay, for everyone that is still yet to join, we are waiting, and everybody is welcome. I hope we are with our daughters, our computers. That's one key thing. Always try to jot something down, always try to practice. And I'm sure this class is even going to be more fun than yesterday. When I mean fun, I mean more knowledgeable. We have wonderful coaches. We would also like to say a big thank you to all the coaches yesterday. They did amazingly well. So today we are going to have wonderful coaches as well that are going to be with us today. So we have Coach Oluwafumi Top Blessed Odefemi, which is going to be our first coach. We have two sessions in this workshop today, or as we all know. 2 hours is for the whole workshop, but we have the whole workshop divided into two sections. So for the first section, we have Oluwafumi Top Blessed Odefemi, an amazing coach, a wonderful coach, and he's going to be taking us through HTML and CSS introduction. Then the second coach we have is a lady. Now, you should see this as a strong point. For a lady to be a coach, that means you also can do better, can do well, and become a pro, and also be a coach. So we have Coach Miriam Yusuf. She'll be taking us in the second half of this workshop, Django installation and Django admin. So it's just basically we continue from where we stopped yesterday, and also advancing in our knowledge and everything we've gained yesterday. So without further ado, let's get into the business of today. Thank you. I remain Lawa Deborah. I'm also a coach and a co-organizer. Thank you very much. And without further ado, let's get into the business of today. I don't know if Coach Fumito is ready for us.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay. Please, let's welcome our coach. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fumito. I'm first of all, I like to call myself an educator. Yeah, so I teach. But then beyond, being an educator, there are a few other things I do. So I'm going to share my screen now. I don't know if I have permission to do that. So please, can you grant me the permission to share my screen?
Yes, you can. You can.
Saying host disabled, participant from sharing screen. So I need access to be able to share my screen. Yeah. So can you allow so that I can share my screen?
Sorry, just give me a minute.
All right.
Sorry, I don't know why my device is misbehaving, but I'm getting to it.
So I think try and make me co-host. That can help. So once you make me co-host, I should be able to share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So like I said earlier, my name is Oluwafumito. I'm an educator. As one of the things do as mostly just as a freelancer. So like I do a lot of trainings and teachings. But then I also wear a lot of other hats. So I'm an IT administrator. I work as a data analyst. I'm Microsoft certified as a data analyst. I'm also a cloud engineer and also a bit of experience with web development, front-end web development. So that's that about me. I could not join the class yesterday. At the moment, I was in transit throughout the time the session was on. I could not join. Apologies for that, but I'm sure the coaches did a good job. I tried to had a I had a look at the video, just a brief part of it. So it was a bit. I was interesting to see, what you guys have been taught. Yeah. So today I'm supposed to be doing an introduction to HTML and CSS. So I'm going to assume that everyone here is a novice. So what I'm going to be doing is it's going to seem a bit rudimentary, but I think it's really important that, for what we are going to be doing for the rest of today and tomorrow, we understand some basic concepts of web development. So I'm going to briefly turn on my video so that you guys can see my face. I'm currently, so it's not very well, but at least hopefully you guys can see me. So this is me. Yeah. And then we'll get started. So a lot of our time has been gone. But if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them. If you have any if you are not clear at any point, feel free to draw me back. And then I'll be happy to come back to where you are at. So HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Basically, that's the meaning of the word HTML. Stands for hypertext markup language, and it's a very interesting thing to learn as a web developer. That's usually the first place you start from. But before we do, before we go on ahead and talk about HTML, it would be a good idea to talk about the web, the internet. I know we talked about the web a bit yesterday, introduction to the internet, but I'll just do a brief recap, and then that would help us. Just refresh our minds a bit on what the web is like. So the internet or the web, they are not the same thing. Excuse me. The web is made possible because of the internet, and usually to access any part of the web, you usually have some constituents. So the first thing usually is a web server, which is where everything on the website sits on. Then you need a URL, which is like a unique identifier. So I'm sure that before we joined this link, there was a link, before we joined this call, there was like a link that was sent. Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so before we joined this call, there was a link that was sent in form of HTTPS something. So that's a URL. It's something that identifies a resource that sits on the web server. Protocols. Yesterday, looking at the teacher's stuff, it talked about some protocols that allows the internet to function. So without those protocols, there's no way communication can occur. So a protocol is just basically a set of rules that people have to comply to before they can do anything together. So take, for instance, some websites, they sit on Windows servers, some sit on Linux servers. And then because both systems have different architectures, they have different ways they work, for them to be able to communicate, there has to be a standard of communication. And that's what protocols allow us to do, or that's what protocols do in terms of making the web work. Then we have a web browser, which is where view your resource. So because this class is supposed to teach us about websites and how websites work, so it's important that we understand a bit also the anatomy of a website. Excuse me. Yeah, so a website or every web application usually is made up of 3 components. You have the HTML, you have CSS, and then you have a programming language. So for the purpose of this workshop, we'll be using Python mostly. But today's introduction will be on HTML and CSS. So I like to use this analogy when I talk about websites. A website is sort of like, a website is sort of like, so if we look at a human body, for instance, a website is sort of like a human body, sort of like a human body. The human body is made up of, something that gives it shape. So some of us did biology growing up, and when we're doing biology, we talk about the skeletal system. So I usually like to view websites the same way I view a human body. So a skeleton is what allows a human body to have, like a framework. So without the skeleton, you are not able to stand upright. So HTML is somehow like the skeleton of every website. It's like the skeleton of every website. So without HTML, the website is not able to, it doesn't have any structure. So HTML is what basically gives a website its structure. Then we have the CSS. So CSS is likened to the muscles and, of a body. So we know that just looking at humans, we have different appearances. We have different ways we are, different parts of our bodies are made. So CSS is kind of like the muscles of a website. So how a website looks is different from how another website looks. The bulk of that is what the CSS affords, or what the CSS allows the website to carry. Then you have the programming language, which is basically now what allows interaction. So for our bodies, we are able to move around, we're able to, interact with other people, we're able to talk. So that's kind of like what a programming language does. It allows you interact. It allows your website to interact dynamically with other systems. So that's kind of how I like to view HTML and CSS. Now, going to the topic for today, HTML is a markup language. Now, when I mean markup, this is what markup means. Some people tend to confuse a programming language with a markup language. The markup language is different from a programming language in that markup is basically what it is doing is adding semantics. So when I mean semantics, it's giving something that doesn't have a meaning. It's giving it a meaning. So that's what basically HTML does. Would get to play around a bit with HTML. So it's good that we have this background knowledge, because when we start writing HTML code, we understand why it's the way it is. So HTML, every time we interact with any document, there's something known as an extension. What gives an HTML its meaning is the .html or .htm extension. So every file on every computer that you work with has what is known as an identifying extension. So if you are familiar with computers, you see something like .exe, you see something like .pdf, you see something like .doc, .xls for Excel, .pdf for PDF files, other examples of, so there are a lot of extensions that identify files on the internet or on a computer. So what .html does is it uniquely tells a computer, so read this document as a markup language document. And yesterday, I'm sure we talked about HTTP, which is the standard protocol for hello? Sorry, I was hearing a bit of an echo. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay,
The mic of everybody is muted, so they can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So HTTP is the protocol of transmitting HTML. So it's basically the set of rules that guides how HTML is transmitted. I'm sure that it was mentioned yesterday. And then the URL or the URI is the identifying link to the web server where the HTML is stored. Now, so I'll be moving to, to how HTML exactly works. Before you start any document, it's important that you understand that there's a structure. So for HTML, every new HTML document you are implementing has to start with what is known as a doc type. And for HTML5, which is currently the latest HTML version, you just need to put doc type HTML. Now, I'm going to explain what all these things mean in a brief second, but just keep it in your mind. Just keep it somewhere. HTML, head, body, HTML. I'll explain what each of those things stand for. Yeah. So elements, attributes, and tags. HTML, this is basically what defines HTML. Elements, attributes, and tags. So let's come back to our earlier let's come back to our earlier slide. So if you look at this doc type, you see something like doc type HTML. Now, you see an open HTML. You see an open HTML. This here is called a tag. This part I'm highlighting is called a tag. Now, tags are usually of two types. So you can see there's an HTML on top, there's an HTML below. So this first one is the opening HTML tag. This one below is the closing HTML tag. But HTML itself is the elements. So sometimes people confuse elements and tags. So the element is HTML. And what an HTML element does is that it defines an HTML document. An HTML element defines an HTML document. So whenever you see HTML element, anything that is inside is going to be interpreted as HTML. When you see a head element, everything that is inside the head element is going to be interpreted as an heading. The same thing with the body. Everything in a body element will be interpreted as part of the body of the HTML. So let's move on. So an HTML element is defined by a start tag, some content, and an end tag. An HTML tag is used to show the start or end of an element. And then HTML attributes provide additional information about an HTML element. We'll get to attributes shortly. So now, to display text in HTML, one of the most popular things is the heading. So the heading, what it does is it denotes sections of a document. There are about 6 headings in any HTML document. There are 6 possible headings, H1 to H6, and H1 is the biggest or the largest, H6 is the smallest. So the H1 is usually called the primary heading, and then H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 are secondary elements. So then we have element types. We have block elements, inline elements. Now, I'm going to share this slide with the organizer. So hopefully at the end, have time to look at these things and digest them yourself. So I don't bombard you with too much information. I'm going to just skip some of these things, and then we'll try and see how we can practice using a real HTML builder or a code editor. So comments are things that help you understand your code better. They are not displayed in a browser. So the browser just automatically ignores them when it sees them. Hyperlinks. So because every website has a unique link, you can interact. One of the things that makes the World Wide Web very, very interesting is the fact that you can interact. You can move from one page to another. You can move from one site to another. And that is made possible through hyperlinks. I like to say hyperlinks are links on steroids. Yeah, so you are able to move from links to links, and you use that using what is known as the anchor tag, which is defined by the A elements. So that's A sign. Don't worry, all of these things we'll get to practice. Let me quickly rush over this slide so that we'll get to VS Code, and then I will practice some of these things. So we have lists in HTML. HTML lists allow us to bring down lists. So sometimes when you open a website, you see things like, maybe someone wants to make a list of something. You use the list. You use list elements to do that. List tags to make that possible. Classes. Now, one of the most interesting parts of HTML is classes. Now, classes are used for styling. Basically, they are used because of CSS. When we get to CSS, we'll probably understand classes better. But classes are used to define styles for elements. Just put that in mind. We'll get to explain them. The same thing with IDs. They're also used to specify, what you want to style something with. IDs and classes. We'll get to them. So let's quickly make a practice on. So I'm going to be. Excuse me. Just a minute. Yeah, Debbie, can you please make my other account? So I have I'm connected with two devices. Can you please make the other device co-host so I can share my screen from there? Thank you. Yeah. So we're going to do some practicing. So what we have here is I have my code editor open, and then I'm going to attempt to create some new HTML document so that we can see how this works. So sorry. Okay. Yeah, so I'm trying to create an HTML document. Yeah. So what I've just done here was basically created a folder on my computer, called it Django Girls 2022, and then created a file called htmlpractice.html. So with this file, we're going to attempt to start, making an HTML. I'm going to try to build an HTML document right from the scratch. Now, you remember from the first thing I said, what you want to do when you want to build an HTML element, the first thing you want to do is declare your document type. So the moment I put a left, so if you have your code editors, you can open. Usually, once you put in your first letter, or when you type, try to type doc type. So just try to type doc type, or put in this opening tag stuff and put doc type HTML. You can see it automatically, it brings out, it does what is known as HTML. It automatically completes the code for you. So what we have here, for instance, so I just type HTML and then it automatically gives me the document type for HTML5. Now, if you are not clear at any point about what I just did, I'm going to attempt to explain what each of these lines mean, and then we'll continue to build from there. So the first part, doc type HTML, is the declarative statement. It tells your browser, because we are going to read this in our browser, it tells our browser, read this as an HTML5 document. Now, you see an opening tag here, HTML. Now, I want you to take note of lang equals to en. That is what is known as an attribute. So HTML attributes help to kind of like, they either tell the browser something or they give some sort of information to the browser, or sometimes you can even use them for styling. So the lang there is an attribute telling the browser that this document that I'm building is in English. So sometimes you would have something like ENGB. ENGB will be like British English. Sometimes it will be ENUS. That's US English or American English. But once you just put it EN, it will, I assume it's just American English most of the time. Now, you see the head. Now, the head element houses everything that you want to be in your heading. Now, some of these meta, let's ignore them for now. They tell the browser that, this is how you should interpret. So char set means my characters are going to be UTF. So there's something called encoding in programming. So it's going to tell the browser that I'm encoding my words in UTF-8. So you can look that up. Those are things that, for personal research, you can just decide to be interested in. You can go and look about them. Then meta, you see HTTP equivalent, XUA compatible. So those are basically just telling the browser, this is and this and this. Then the viewport too is the same thing, telling the browser, this is how you should scale the document. Now, the first interesting bit I want us to look at is title. So the title gives your HTML title. That's just what it is. So if I say, welcome to Django Girls 2022, day 2. So we're trying to build something for Django Girls 2022, day 2. This is our title. Then the body is going to house everything we want to show in our HTML document. For a start, I'll just put my name is Fumito. So this is what I want to just do for now. Now, because this is HTML. I have to enclose this in an element. So let me use one of the most popular elements, the paragraph. Now, the slide I'm going to share will contain some details about some of these elements, some of the simplest elements, or that you can easily try out on your own. Now, let us view this as it is. Let us try to view it in a web browser. Sorry, just a second. I'm trying to open it up in a browser. Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to share that now. So from what you can see, excuse me. Now you can see from the title that my title is showing up on top of my browser. So every time you visit a website, the title you see is actually what has been programmed into the title element. So let's go back to the browser now. So you can see title, welcome to Django Girls Day 2. And then the first thing I put here, which is the P tag, which is a paragraph, it gives you, my name is Fumito. So that is a paragraph. Now, let me attempt to make this an heading. So I'll make it an heading, H1, which is the biggest heading, and then I'll refresh. So you can see the difference. This is an heading tag. So it automatically tells the browser, display this as an heading. I'm going to do do this. Let me see. So that you can see some of the semantic differences in these things. H5, H4, H3, H2. So this H2, H3, H4. So this is saved. So let's refresh. So you can see the differences between H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Now, let me now use this as a paragraph. You see another difference between. So you can see a paragraph is just ordinary text, but an heading is text that is bold. Then depending on the type of heading, you have different sizes. Now, I think this is a good point to. Sorry. Let me open up the slide here. Let's get to where we stopped. Oh, sorry. It was last year's slides. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, so I want to believe we are following. See, these things are not very difficult, but once you understand the basics, then you'll be able to, anything you want to build will just boil down to, sitting down. Now, let me see some of this. So you can see block elements are used for grouping. They're used as containers. Inline elements are used for text. We might have time, we might not have time to look at some of these little, but once you understand the concepts, it will be very easy for you to work with these things. Images. So one very interesting thing about websites is that allows you to put an image. So you use the image tag for, putting an email in a website. We talk about lists, classes, let's get to CMSS, and then I'll do a bit of expanding on classes. So I don't know if you have your code editor open. So I want us to do something. Yeah. So just imagine that you want to go on a trip. Where is that perfect location that you want to go to a trip? So I want you to build an HTML5 document right away. I'll give you 3 minutes. It shouldn't take more than 3 minutes. Basically, the only thing I want you to do is just the doc type, define your doc type, put the head, put the title, and then inside your body, put a list. Put a list inside your body and talk about the things you would like to see or the things you would like to do when you travel or on that your perfect trip. So that's, I don't know, anybody up for that? I'll allow you share, can allow you share your screen or maybe I'll just do it on my own end. So this is my editor. So I'd say, so I'll title this Picture Perfect Trip. This is what I'll title this. Yeah, so I'd like to, so first of all, let me put a paragraph. I would like to visit Japan. So that's where I think I want to paragraph, or let me use a span. Yeah. When I visit Japan, I would like to do the following. Then I'll do a list. Excuse me. So I would, there are 2 types of lists. There's what is known as an ordered list and an unordered list. So I'll do an unordered list. List item. So eat sushi. I like to do the following. Visit a monk. What other interesting thing to do in Japan? Do some yoga. So these are just things that I just like to do. Now I'm going to refresh this web page, and then you see immediately, you can see I like to visit Japan. That's a paragraph. When I visit Japan, there's a typographic out there. When I visit Japan, I'd like to do the following: eat sushi, visit a monk, do some yoga. Now, because I named this as an unordered list, there's no order. So I'm going to change this to an ordered list. You see the difference. So you can see an ordered list is a list of sequential items. So you can see 1, eat sushi, 2, visit a monk, 3, do some yoga. So that's those are some of the things that you can do around HTML. I think we need to really run. Let me do CSS. Now, CSS, I won't talk about the history at all. CSS is what beautifies a website. Without CSS, a website is as good as, this. You can see it's looking really, I don't want to use, the word that comes to mind, but it's just plain. It's too plain. But what CSS does is it allows you to look for something that makes something that is very plain and then beautify it. Personally, I'm not a CSS, I don't consider myself as much of a CSS person. So I'm not very good with CSS. But there's always something about being able to use CSS well. Now, this is how CSS works. You remember we talked about attributes earlier. CSS uses attributes to target elements. Now, there are three types of selectors that you can use to style an image. So let's go back to our document. So this P here is an element. Remember, it's an element. Or this is an element. Now, I can decide to style this paragraph using CSS. Now, one thing, this is how CSS works. Style. So you can see. Now, you use the style elements to style your document. So I'm going to take my paragraph, for instance, and I'm going to style it. This is how you style. So I'm going to do color. Let's just give it aquamarine. Now, let's refresh. Can you see? Oh, that's such a bad color. The contrast is really bad. Yellow. Sorry, not very good with. Let me use black. No, it was black before. I want to use a color that will stand out very well on white. Anybody suggest? Anybody can suggest gray, green. So you can see red. Okay, someone suggested red. So let's do red. So you can see that I've targeted my paragraph text, my paragraph elements, using this element P. I've targeted it and I've given it a color. Now, that is what CSS does. It allows you to look for any elements and then make it anyhow you like. Now, there's a downside to using elements to style, because if I do this paragraph, for every element in my HTML body that is a paragraph, they're all going to get the color red. So let me put another paragraph here. For instance, my visit to Japan was the best. So if I do this now, you can see that it's also red. That's because it's also a paragraph. So anything I target using an element will get it. So that's what this tag names does. Now, there's a different way to style using what is known as ID. Now, I'm going to show us that. So now let's assume that I want to only style this paragraph, ID. ID equals to intro. Now, even though there are two paragraphs in my body, I can decide I want to style only this paragraph here using the ID attribute, using the ID. So now if I refresh, sorry. Just a second. So something. Oh, sorry. I'm doing ID. So I'm supposed to style using the ID. The ID here is intro. So I'm going to give it the intro. So you can see it's only the first paragraph that is getting styled. Now I'm going to do for the second paragraph. I'm trying to let us differentiate between IDs and classes now. So let me do this one. Let me call this one class outro. So so color Let's do green for this. So let's refresh. So you can see now that I'm using an ID to style different paragraphs. So that's where when you are building, you want to target specific things, you have to use either IDs or classes. Now I'm going to differentiate where a class differs from an ID. A class is less specific than an ID. A tag name is less specific than a tag. So let me explain that again. So when it comes, there's something called specificity in CSS, meaning that if an element has more than one style, which style does CSS follow? So the style with the style with the highest specificity is the ID. So if I style something with an ID, and then I style it with a class, and then I style it with a tag name, so CSS is going to take the ID first before it takes the class, before it takes the tag. So it usually goes from ID to class to tag name. So that's usually the difference. Then another difference is that an ID is unique. You cannot use the same ID for two different things in your website. An ID is used to specify to style something very unique. You can class more than one thing. You can class more than one thing, but you cannot have more than one ID in a website or in a web page. So that's the difference between a class and an ID. Let's see tag name. So you can see this was part of like what we did earlier. You can use an HTML to tag. So you can see this is what an ID looks like. You use the hash symbol when you want to style using IDs. You use the dot symbol when you want to style using a class. So you can see dot song lyrics. So for this, for instance, so if you look at this, this is a paragraph that has a class of song lyrics and then Little Bunny Fufu. So if you want to start using a class, use the dots. But for ID, you use the hash symbol or pound symbol to style. Our time is almost over, but I want to believe that you've gotten something from today's classes. Now, today's class, the session so far. Now, another quick thing that I would like to mention with CSS. So there are three ways you can format your CSS. What I just did there was internal CSS. So I'm styling my CSS within my HTML. There's another one I can do. So let's take for this span now. I can decide to do what is known as an inline CSS. So for this span, for instance, let's say I want to say text, what border? No, let me say background, span, color. Sorry. I'm trying to see text color. Let me see. Let me do something from here. I'm trying to do an inline styling. So an inline styling is when you style within your so let's do an H1 here. So let's do color blue, Django girls. Color equals to, so this is it, yeah. So this is how you style inline. Sorry. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Is it blue? No. Let me use the RGB. Just a second. So I know I'm aware that my time is out. So let me just quickly wrap this up. Okay, I think it might be because it's an H1. Let's use another tag. So let's do here, color, blue. Sorry, that is not working. But I hope you all get the idea. The idea is you can apply your CSS inline. It's been a while I did this. So this is not recommended, actually. So it's been a very long time I did this. I probably, it's not recommended. But because we are trying to practice, but that is basically how it works. So you specify what style. Oh, I think I remember now. So it's style, color. Yeah, something like this. Sorry, because I've not done this in a while. Now you can see that the color has changed. So that's how it works. Let's put it here. When you don't do something for a long time, you forget how it's done. So this is not recommended when you are building a website. Don't ever use your styles inline. Never. You only use it when you are testing. So even internal, with what I did here, is not recommended. The recommended way for styling is known as external. So you style your CSS separately. So basically what that means is that I'll create a separate file for my CSS. So my CSS does not live inside my HTML. So what I'll do is I'll create a separate CSS file and then link my CSS file in my HTML document. So that's what is known as external CSS. Some of these things you would get to practice in the course of, or you will see them in the course of this training. But one thing I'd like to also say is that if you at any time you have issues or you have any form of challenge, you can always reach out. My number is on the, or my number is on the group. I was the one who sent a message early this morning. So you can always reach out to me. So I have a question here. I want someone to answer it. Someone that is sure of themselves to answer this question. Huh? Anybody? What's the answer? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Is it D? Am I alone? Please, I need more answers. So I can see somebody is trying to confuse us here. Huh? Hello, nobody has answered me. I need more answers. I need to have like 3, 4, 5 people answer me. Then I'll give my answer. I need 3, 4, 5 people to give me their different opinions. Nobody is talking. Please. Our students, where are we? What's the answer? how do you select all the p tags on a page? So I have let's say I have 6 paragraphs on my page and I want to style all of them in the same way. How do I select them? Do I use #p and then I write my CSS, or do I use opening tag p or closing tag then, or do I use .p, or do I use p? What's the answer? I need at least 3, 4.
Is B?
Is B. Okay.
Yes.
Was that what I did? I remember I did it in earlier. I was sure I did it here. I was so sure I did it. That was the first example I gave. So we have more than one. Yeah. So for instance, we have more than one paragraph here. Now, so for me to, okay, let me explain. Let me do something now. And then I promise after this, I would stop. So, color. White. Now, I want to explain the specificity that I talked about earlier. So you would see that I did, hello? I'm echoing. I don't know what that is. So you would see that I've done something here. I have a P as an attribute. So the answer is actually, this is the correct answer. The answer is D. Because I'm targeting all paragraphs. I won't put the anchor tags again. I won't put those less than and greater than. I won't put them. So the answer is D. Yeah, so the answer is D. I saw Coach Nnamdi was trying to confuse us at first, but it did not work. Yeah, so I want to explain that specificity I talked about earlier. Now you will see that I talked about it will take intro, it will take ID before it takes class, before it takes tag. So you will see here now that this P tag, it has two, I'm applying 2 styles. I'm using both the tag, that's the paragraph, and the ID to style it. Now, because ID comes first before tag, you can see that it's taking a red color. That's because ID comes first. Now, the moment I comment out this, you will see that it's going to take the color white. So you can see it's white now. I can't see it again. So that's a very good example of specificity of CSS. And it's something that we should take note when we are building, because sometimes it can, make or break. So one final question, and I think I'm done. Sorry, Mariam, I've eaten into your time. But I started a bit late too. So I think I started at about 4:15. So I would just kindly beg you to indulge. Yeah, so what's the answer to this question? In CSS, how would you select only paragraphs with class name warning? So I don't want any coach to answer here. I want the participant. I want our students to answer. How would you select only paragraphs with the class name warning? Answers. Nobody's answering me. Sorry, I can't hear you. Huh? You go with what? No. Please, have we been listening at all? Is it because my face? You're not seeing my face? I want the students to answer. Even if it's just one person, please answer me. I mentioned earlier that class, when you want to select and style using a class, you use, I even did it using a class. So the answer is right here on your screen. So what is the answer? So I've selected a I've selected a particular element here using a class. So I think this should give us a clue. So how do you select using a class? Anybody? I'll call names. Blessing. Can you please answer? Okay. Why is everybody quiet? Or am I mute? Ash, and that was a good try. That was a good try, Fadila. That was a good try. Ash is for ID. So if you want to select using class, you use the dots. So you can see here. So you can see P class equals to outro. To style my outro, I have to use the dot outro. So the answer is dot. When you're trying to style using a class, use outro. When you're trying to style using ID, use hash or pound sign. When you're styling using an element, use just the element name. At this point, I'm sure this is easy to answer now. By ID. So the answer here will be B. I would like to say thank you. It's been an exciting, couple of minutes here together. Some of you it might seem like this was rushed, but I want to crave your indulgence. I'm going to share this with the coordinator, this slide. I'm going to share with him. And then they will share with us, or you should ask actually that it be shared with you. Go over it, go over the videos over and over and over again, go over the documents and keep it, to always refer to at every point in time. It's going to really, really, really help you. I think I would hand over back to Debbie now. I feel like this was really, we didn't have enough time to do justice to this. If we had to do proper justice, each of these would have taken at least one day. So HTML alone, we should have spent an entire day. CSS alone, we should have spent an entire day just, trying to understand that alone. But because of the limits of time, we'll just have to make do. what is most important now is that, individually, we go back and we go and study, and then we, try our hands on it. If you do not practice, you would forget. That's the truth. So I'll bow out now. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Django girls. Look forward to some other time. Like I said again, my DM is open. Feel free to reach out. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Even if everyone wasn't responding as much as they should, I feel this class has been impactful. Sorry if you feel the class was rushed. We are working with time. But this shouldn't end here. Like, according to our coach, keep on practicing. The more you practice, the more you get better. And any parts you don't get, any parts you don't understand, feel free to contact any of the coaches, or you can contact me. Anything you don't understand, I'll make sure your questions are passed to the appropriate bodies. So without further ado, time is not on our side. We're going to be inviting or bringing in our second coach, Coach Miriam Yusuf, which she's going to be taking us in the topic Django installation and Django admin. So let's welcome our coach. Yeah, practice makes perfect. Mr. Nnamdi, I see you there. All right, handing over to Miriam, Coach Miriam Yusuf.
Yeah. Thank you, Deborah. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay. Yeah. So, I'm going to take Django installation and Django admin. So I want this class to be as interactive as possible, because the aim of, at the end of the day, the aim is to have like Django installed on your computer. So it's going to be very helpful for us to do this like together. So we should just like practice and work together and install Django. So I'm just going to go through a few steps. So when I go through the steps, I want us like to also, okay, so I want us to also follow the steps and do the same thing in our computer. If you have any question or if you have anything that is not running, you can just like send a chat, or you can just unmute and ask your question, if that is fine with everyone. Okay, so no one is speaking. Is okay, I can see blessing. Okay, all right, no problem. Do we all have Django installed on our PC? Is there any of us that doesn't have Django installed on our laptop, or do we all have Django installed? Hello? Okay, you can just send like a chat. I just want to like know the number of people that doesn't have like Django. Okay, I can see blessing. So the first step for installation is going to be to, so I'll just go through the Django tutorials. I don't know if it's fine. I'm just going to share my screen so we can go through this together. Okay, hi Deborah. Is it possible that I share my screen?
Okay, I'm coming.
Okay.
Yeah, you can now.
Okay. Okay, so at the end of this this call, we should all have like Django installed on our computer. So it's fine if you're using any type of operating system. If you have a Windows or you have a Linux or a Mac OS, that's fine. We're just going to go through the steps. So if you have any question, you can just like send the chat, or you can unmute and ask a question. So the first thing before we start the installation is going to be to go through what virtual environments are. So virtual environments are extremely helpful to separate your installation in your Python installation. So for example, like Django, we use Django to build web applications, right? So if you can have 10, you can be managing more than a website in your computer. You can have up to 10 websites in your computer. And an installation or a package or anything can affect the other. So you might have different packages, you might have different requirements for each website. So that is where a virtual environment comes in. So if you use a virtual environment, you can separate, okay, let's say I have a website for e-commerce and this website for my blog, and maybe another website for something else. I can have like each installation, a separate installation for each of my websites. So that is where virtual environment comes to play. So for this, we're going to create like a Django Girls website. So that is the base we're going to start with. So the virtual environment, we're going to create a virtual environment for Django Girls. So the first step is so I guess we all have Python installed on our system, right? Please, you can just send like a chat. You can reply via chat just to make sure that we all have Python, because you have to install Python first before you install Django. So I'm guessing we all have Python from yesterday's session. Hello? Oh, okay. So I can see blessings, reply. Okay, just make sure you have Python, right? If you don't have Python, we can just wait for you to install Python, because if you don't have Python on your system, you have to like install Python before you can proceed to the next step. So I'm assuming everybody have Python installed on their laptop. For you to confirm if you have Python, you can just open your command shell or just type Python, and if it doesn't bring like an error or something, then you have like Python installed on your laptop. So the first step we're going to go through is to create a virtual environment. So what I mentioned about virtual environments, we're going to create a virtual environment now on our computer. So the virtual environment is so the virtual environment is going to, so we want to create like a web application, right? Like a blog for Django Girls. You can call it anything, but we want to like create a blog. We want to create a blog, right? So we want to create a virtual environment for this blog. So any installation, any packages, anything we have, we're going to put it in a virtual environment. It doesn't have to affect like the whole computer or any other project we're going to have. So the first thing is we're going to open our command prompt. Please, I want this class to be interactive. It looks like I'm the only one talking. And if it's not interactive, we might not end up like achieving like what we want to do for today, like installing Django. So please just make sure you ask questions or you just reply via chat, just for me to be sure that we're on the same page. So you can open your command prompt. If for anyone who is not using, with command prompt or terminal, you can open any of it. So you create a new folder called Django Girls. Just let me know when we are done with that. So I'll just wait till we'll finish this first step. Have we all created our first folder? Okay, Blessing, I can see your reply. My PC is slow. All right, we'll wait for you, no problem. Please, others in the others in the room, please just make sure like you confirm that you've created your first folder so we can continue. But Blessing, when you're done creating the first folder, you can just let me know. So you open your command, you open your terminal. When you open your terminal, you click, when you open your terminal, you type the command make directory space, then Django girl. So what make directory? MKDIR. So MKDIR means make directory, Django girl. So you're making a folder called Django girls. If you don't want to do it through your command line, you can just go, if you use the Windows system, you can just go to anywhere, maybe your project, anywhere you want to create, maybe a desktop or your document folder, and use the normal. Okay, my system is down. I don't have my computer with me at the moment. Okay, so maybe I'll just like go through it. When I go through it, I'm just going to like, because it looks like we all don't have like our PCs here. So I'll just like try to summarize everything. Then at the end of this class, you can just go and install Django on your own. So if you have any questions, you can always send them to me or anyone, any of the coaches. So if you want to install, you can always follow this link after the class, since we don't have like our systems here. So make directory means you are creating a directory. If you don't use the command, if you don't use the terminal mkdir, you can always, if you're using a Windows, you can always right click, new folder, Django girls. That is the same thing. It's going to create a folder called Django girls. So what CD is doing, it is changing directory. So any directory that you're currently in your terminal is going to move to Django girls. So you created a folder called Django girls. Then now you are inside Django girls folder. It's just the same thing as I created. I right click. I created a new folder and I right click. Oh, sorry, I double click in the folder and I'm now inside the folder. Ideally, the folder is going to be empty because I just created a folder. So the next thing is going to be to type Python 3, venv, my venv. So what this means is this is Python 3, right? The reason why we are putting Python 3, because ideally you can just put Python. So there are some computers that might have multiple Python installed in their PC. So you might have Python 2 installed and Python 3. So just for you to specify that I want to use Python 3 in this command. So that's why you're specifying Python 3. Then venv. Venv is just like the virtual environment. You want to create a virtual environment. So that is what you're going to, that's the command for creating a virtual environment. Then this my venv, my venv, my venv is any name you're going to choose. You can choose Django girls, you can choose any name, but just try to make it short because you always use it almost every time. You have to use it almost all the time to activate your virtual environment. So if you have a long name, it's going to be always difficult for you to type. So this is just like a short showing you, it's still the same thing we went through on Windows and maybe on Linux and Mac OS, like how to create your virtual environment. So after creating your first virtual environment, then you install Django. So if you create your virtual environment, you activate the virtual environment. So activating a virtual environment is still the same thing as I created my folder and I want to use the folder. I double click, right? I'm inside the folder. So it's the same thing. I have a virtual environment that I created. I need to activate the virtual environment to start using the virtual environment. So how do you do that? On Windows, there's this command. So, you know, a virtual environment actually is like a folder. Then there are like scripts there. So this Windows command is just telling you that, oh, this is, if you notice, this is my venv virtual environment that we created is a normal folder. Inside the folder, it has a script folder. Inside the script folder, there is an activate script shell. So that is what we're activating. And anytime you activate a virtual environment, let me just give you an example here. Anytime you activate a virtual environment, you always see that So for example, now this is the virtual environment I have. It's called prod importer. Every time, your normal command is going to be normal, but when you activate the virtual environment, you see in brackets the name of the virtual environment. So in this case, let's say my virtual environment name is Venv. My Venv, like we created, is going to have my Venv. That's like a way for you to know that, oh, okay, my virtual environment is already created. So after activating a virtual environment, then we install Django. So we use pip to install Django. So what pip does is, pip is like a package manager for Python. So anytime you want to install any Python packager, you use pip, right? So this is just like upgrading pip. Then the next thing is for us to install Django. Since we have pip, pip is the one that's going to help you to download any Python packager you have or you need. So the next thing is going to be to install package with requirements. So requirement.txt is just a normal.txt file. So a txt file have all your packages that you need. So you remember when we talked about virtual environment and about virtual environment, keeping installation for each website, right? So this requirement.txt is going to keep installation and packages for you for all your websites. So for example, here in this Django Girls blog that I have, the first thing I'm going to install is Django. So I'm going to install Django, and this is the version number. So there's some web applications that dependency can affect each other, right? So let's say in Django 3.2, I have another package that depends on maybe Django 4.0. So there might be a problem here. And that is the main reason why we are separating with the virtual environment, so they don't affect each other. So here, I'm specifying that install Django. This symbol means, okay, I want to install Django 3.10, but eventually if you see any version that is higher, because right now we have Django version 4. Is it 4.1 or 4.0? I'm not sure. But if we run this now, it's going to install Django 4. Not 3.2, because of this symbol that we've given that, okay, install Django 3.2. But if you meet anyone higher, install the one that is higher. So that's just what this is doing. So then here, we're going to, in our requirement.txt, we are putting Django, right? We're telling that, okay, anytime something comes to requirement.txt, what I need to install is Django. So then I do pip install our requirement.txt. So you remember when I said pip is like a Python packager, a package manager for Python. So pip will help you to download anything that you want to download. Any packager you want to download for Python. So that is what it's doing, right? Telling you to install R. So R means we are installing everything here in this requirement.txt. What this is going to do is going to go to our requirement.txt. Remember, this is our folder, right? This is our main folder that we created. Then we have our virtual environment here. Then we have a requirement.txt. In this requirement.txt, we put Django 3.2.10 here. So this is going to come to this requirement.txt, check that, oh, I have a Django 3.2.10 to install, and it is going to install it for us. So when you get your PC back, this is what you should see when you run pip install requirement.txt. It's going to bring output some commands to you, collecting Django, downloading Django, installing, and successfully installed Django. And that is it. You install Django, and you can now use Django in your project. Yeah, so we are done installing Django. So I wished we had like our computers here, so we'll have gone through the installation together. But yeah, but that's fine. Anytime you get to your PC, you can always go through this step and do the installation. If you have any questions, you can reach out to any of the coaches, or you can reach out to me if you're having issues following these steps. So the next thing is going to be the Django admin. So what the Django admin? So one of the advantages of, Django is a web framework. Is a web framework. So one of the advantages Django have over other web frameworks is that Django has like a customizable, powerful Django admin. So what the Django admin will do for you is it's going to provide access for you to do some powerful operations on your data directly. So those operations are like, you can view data, you can create data, you can delete data, and you can update a data. So because these operations are actually very, very sensitive, so your Django admin should only be handled by someone who is trustworthy in the organization. So let's say I have a blog, right? If I have a blog, I'm going to have a product model. So if I have a product model, if I have if I have a post, so for my blog, I'm going to have a post, right? Anytime I create a post, I'm always going to create a post in my Django admin. So if you come to my Django admin, you're going to see, oh, I've created a post, I've created a post, I've created a post. If you allow users, your end users, or anybody to have access to a Django admin, they can go to that post, they can delete it, they can edit, they can view. Maybe sometimes if it's not a post that is yet to be published, they can do that, they can view it. So it's very, very sensitive for you to, like, it's just actually like good to protect the Django admin. It's not for end users, it's for high users in the organization, just for people to quickly perform some operations like adding data, delete, or editing data. So here, yeah, this is what the Django admin looks like. So Django admin can only be accessed by a super user, and a super user can give access to any other user, a privilege or access to any other user to access the Django admin. So here, this is, let's say you've installed your Django. So here I have a Django project I can show. So here I have like a Django project here. So because here I've installed Python, and when I mentioned the requirement.txt, so for this project here, I have like a requirement.txt. It's quite a lot. That's when I was talking about the whole dependency and everything. But when you have this is my Django here, my requirement.txt. Anytime I do pip, like I mentioned earlier, install r requirement.txt, it is always going to install everything I have here is going to be installed in this virtual environment. So okay, what I wanted to mention is the create user. So if you have finished installing your Django and you want to create a super user, so only the super user can have access to Django admin. Then the super user can also give permission to other users to access the Django admin. So if you want to create a super user, when you do this, it's going to ask for the username. I'm just going to put like a default username. Oh, I have that already. So my email. And then the password. I'm going to just put the password again. It's going to ask that this password is too common. I'm just going to like click after, then I've created the super user. So now if I do this, okay, so here I'm running my application and I want to access Django admin. So the default URL to access Django admin in Django is your website URL, because I'm currently using my localhost. So you can see my localhost URL here, /admin. But it is not advisable for you to keep /admin as your URL for accessing has a URL for accessing your admin page, because people can guess easily because it's common. So it's advisable for you that when you have your application and everything, the first thing you should do is to change this URL. You should give something that is not guessable, just like a password, something like a combination of string or something that people cannot guess easily for you to accept this admin. So here in my admin, this is what I'm talking about. I have, this is just the models I have, more like my database. So in my database, I have groups, I have users, and I have like all these. From here, I can open, I can view. This is empty, but I can come here. I think I have data here. Yeah, I can come here. I can view. I can delete. I can update. Like any data I have, I can change any record I want to change, and I can create new record. So it's very, very important to keep like this URL and to just safeguard the Django admin page. Yeah. So I think that is all from me. I don't know if you have any questions to ask. I would have loved that we installed the Django together and all that. But since we don't all have our system, it should be better to just like install it when everyone get their system back. But if you have any question, you can ask, or anything you're not clear of, you can ask. Hello, can anyone hear me? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, okay. So Deborah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm done. So they all don't like have their pieces here. We'll have installed Django and maybe run through some installations together. But yeah.
Well, I'm sure even without the PC, they've learned a lot. But it's a good thing that we have it recorded, and
Yeah, and
we
they can
also
go
have,
through.
so we can easily send it back to the group for them to work on it, then ask questions. I'm sure after the class, there'll be plenty of questions. Even if there are no questions now, there'll be questions eventually when they try it out. And yeah, thank you very much. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing class. Thank you very much. And we enjoyed your class.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. For everyone that is still here till now, all the coaches, Coach Namdi, Coach Miriam, Coach Funtop, thank you all very much for attending today. Don't worry, for all of you complaining about network, we'll send it back to you. Thank you very much for staying today. I'm sure you learned and you got value for your time. Tomorrow is another day, another wonderful day in the morning and in the evening. And that will be the end of this amazing workshop. So thank you all for staying till now. Please, as Coach Inamdi said, practice makes perfect. If you don't practice, you won't get perfect. And the more you practice, the more you get more knowledge. So everything they explained now may not sink in at the moment, but the more you practice, you understand more. So thank you very much. Thank you to all our organizers. Thank you to everyone for staying. Thank you very much. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Peace out.